Hi there, and welcome back to another episode at Station Road. Now today we're actually getting back into the raised goods yard project. So what I plan to do in today's episode is work further on the street area and look at this coal merchant's yard that I've been discussing in previous videos, and also a Scalescenes kit that I'll be using for some buildings on the corner. So today's episode is quite a lengthy episode, and I've included some chapters, so if you feel the need to skip through to certain sections, you're more than welcome to do so. But I really did feel like I needed to cover quite a number of different aspects to this build, and it's particularly in relation to the kit bashing of this Scalescenes kit. So this is the area in question in here, and as I mentioned, I sort of wanted to somehow merge a little bit of commercial shop type industries, then flowing through into what becomes obviously more an industrial area. So hence why using this Scalescenes kit, which is an industrial workshop, which I'll be going through how I'm going to be kit bashing this a little bit, where it'll be a boiler repair shop slash coal merchant, because I kind of thought maybe those two might sort of tie together. So based on that, I've just sort of roughly sketched out a template for what's going to happen in this area. So with the kit bashing of this industrial workshop, I'm going to actually double up and have two of these front pieces, so there'll be two side by side, and then of course they'll be at different depths, so we've got this kind of stepped effect which creates a little bit more room in around here for the coal merchant's yard. So along this edge here, and this being the pavement, we'll have a brick wall running along here, and then of course there'll be another vehicle entrance coming in here, and then potentially over here what I want to do is have some coal saves that obviously coal wagons can dump their coal loads into this area here. So there'll be a couple of coal bunkers or whatever they're called that will go in here. So we've still got our entrance obviously into the goods yard area, so there's this sort of probably more commercial slash private entrance in here, and I may gate this entrance possibly back here. So that's the plan. So what we'll do is we'll now jump into the actual construction side of this warehouse building. So before we jump into the build, I just sort of thought I'd run through some of the things that I do to the Scalescenes downloadable kits before I print anything. So if we take a look at this kit, we've got 4 pages in here, and of course many of you will be very familiar with these kits, but for those who maybe have not come across them before or haven't given them a go, we've got a page here which is heavy card, so that indicates you print that and glue it onto heavy card. Another page that you print and glue onto heavy card, and then we've got a section here which is heavy card, then we've got medium card, and then there's light card. So it's all quite self-explanatory, and there are pretty good instructions for how to put these kits together. So as you know, what I do with these kits is save myself a lot of hassle with hand cutting and laser cut a lot of the components. Pretty much all the base structure components are laser cut. So for example, this page here, I don't print it at all. So I take the outer shape of these walls and extract that out of the PDF and convert that over into a file that I can then put through the laser cutter. So all of these components aren't printed. The same goes for this. I print these, but then also I laser cut the actual square shapes of the walls. And likewise for here, so these components are all laser cut beforehand, but then these areas are also printed as well. But I don't print directly from this PDF. So what I do is take the PDF into Adobe Illustrator and start extracting some of the elements, getting rid of some of the stuff that I don't need. So another alternative is to use Inkscape, and if you're familiar with Michael from Chanwell, he goes into some pretty good detail about using Inkscape and how to extract elements out of Inkscape and to manipulate and use them. So that is the PDF. So from that PDF I take out the elements that I want that are going to be printed. So for example, I've only extracted the top half of these inner walls up against the roof line, and then I've eliminated any kind of cut lines that are indicated, and it's just basically straight brickwork. So in here you'll see I've added a go sign because I want to have a go sign on one of the walls, and I've just manipulated this in Photoshop from some artwork that I found on the internet for a company called Takeo Boilers. So I thought that might sort of tie in nicely with the boiler repair workshop and the coal merchant. So one of the things that I'm actually doing, of course, is manipulating the original building. So the walls are actually shorter, so these walls are for the larger component of the building and these are for the shorter wall. So they have been adjusted and manipulated to suit. And then of course we've got more of the inner walls, and then we've got some of the doors and roof line and things like that. So these are all components that I've extracted out of the PDF, and of course you can do this kind of stuff also within Inkscape, which of course is a free vector-based software program. So that really sort of essentially ended up being my final print files. And then if we switch over to this file, I then started working out what components I'm going to be laser cutting, and this is basically all the base structure for this particular kit, and then converting it over into some lined drawings which will be accepted into the laser cutter, and of course most importantly actually putting in some labels, because otherwise you're going to get very confused as to what part might be what. So the font that I've actually used in here is just purely a line font, so that that can actually be laser cut as well, and that's laser engraved rather than obviously cut all the way through the card. So these are all the components for cutting, and all of this is cut out of 2mm grey card. So these are essentially all the components. Now one of the things that I'm going to attempt to do, and this is in this section here, is laser cut out of some of that black, very black but rigid card which I used for the wrought iron gates on the workshop, and also the roof finials as well, and roof cresting on one of the street shops as well. So I'm going to laser cut this as the round vents, and hopefully with a bit of luck I've only cut portionally through here, and I might be able to twist these pieces into a sort of 45 or angled shape. We also have here the door rail component which I've set up, because what I'm actually thinking of doing, which would be kind of nice, is for the door to be positionable, so not to have it actually fixed permanently to the building in one position. There's a plan to actually make the doors actually slide from open to closed. So that's what these components are for. So that sort of really basically sort of covers the sort of prep work that was involved in terms of getting this together. And obviously, yes, also one more thing was some windows. Now these are going to be cut from the Cricut Joy with the vinyl, and I've picked out a spray paint which I'll spray paint some black vinyl, get these windows cut out, and then stick them onto some clear film. So we'll head over to the construction now and see how it goes. Right, so I've laid out the laser cut components for this build, and it actually seems like quite a lot, doesn't it, for such a simple structure. So there's a number of layers, of course, as is explained in the instructions, and the outer walls are really double thickness heavy card, and then there's a single heavy card inner layer, and that's on the end walls, and then the two side walls are also got 2 layers of heavy card. So when it's finished, it should be pretty solid and sturdy. So I've just printed out what you might normally print if you were doing it the conventional way and gluing the prints to various thicknesses of card. So as you can see, this is the heavy card layer, and if we take a wall, we can see that I've basically extracted the shape out of here in order to laser cut these shapes. So here we have the actual brickwork prints, which have also been sprayed with a clear matte varnish, so that really does help a lot when you're working with these types of kits, that you can manipulate and work the brickwork around corners without worrying about wearing the print or scratching it in any way. So we've got wall sections, we've got inner wall, outer end walls, and so forth. So that's that material there. So in here is these tiny little wee black strips which are for the door rails, which I've managed to laser cut out, and these are actually the vents which have kind of worked. So if we take a closer look at that, if I can get it in the right angle, it's probably a bit tricky to see, but the laser cutter has cut the lines, and then I've gone in there with a pair of tweezers and twisted the actual slats to a slight angle, so it should sort of work, hopefully. So just looking at these components here, so I've indicated obviously which is for the smaller component of the building and then for the larger component. So for example, we have an outer wall end, and there's actually 4 of these, so these are actually going to be doubled together to create a double thickness. So that's how thick that wall will be with the double thickness. So I think what I'll do is actually glue these together and then start wrapping the brickwork around them. So there's those 2 there, they get paired together as well, and then we've got some other components. For example, that is the outer rear wall, they'll be paired together, and that is for the long or larger building component, and then this one here is for the shorter building component. So that's those, and then we've got these inner walls which I will be wrapping first before I attach to the outer walls. And then the inner and outer walls here, of course, as well, these don't actually need wrapping because the brickwork is just going on the face of it, and of course that is actually going to sit butted up against the edge like so in there. What else have we got here? So what I've done with also the template from the file is I've modified it slightly and cut out these windowsill notches. So we've got some small windowsill components which will need wrapping first, and then hopefully I'm going to be able to slide these in here and create our windowsill. So it protrudes out a little bit, but it will give it that depth from this viewpoint where you won't sort of see a join, and it'll actually sort of mimic really how a real building might be constructed, where windowsills are actually notched in beyond the edge of the window frame. So that's those components there. So I think what I'll get into it, and of course the usual style, I'll speed up all of this footage, so it will probably take several hours to work through this. So we've now moved along a little bit further, and I've now applied all the brick textures to the card walls, and in some cases I've gone a little bit further, and we can see we now have some windows in there as well. So they're starting to take shape, and of course in this example here I've also installed the windowsill. So that's the vent up the top, which is now been glued in, and it sort of works okay considering it's laser cut from some 0.6mm black card. And then this is one of the rear walls, and once again with a windowsill now installed here, and of course a door as well. So I've been working away at these sliding main doors. So what we've got here, if I can get it to focus, is one of the front sliding doors, which of course has got a material on the back. Now it might be a little bit tricky to see, but just at the very top there is a slither of clear plastic film. Now that's actually sandwiched in between the card and this rear layer, and this is what I'm planning to use to act as a guide that will run in the track or the door rail at the top. So I'll put one of these together, and we're just sort of working away at doing the final one here. Now this one here is an example. So this is the black card, and then on the back I've just glued this clear acetate film, and there is just a tiny little bit poking out the top. So once again it is a case of wrapping some paper texture around the outside, and then also applying this to the back. So this one is going on the front, so we're just going to apply a little bit of PVA glue is what I'm using here, and I think this is really probably the best option. So for wrapping the actual edges around here, I use a bit of the rocket card glue, and you would have seen me using this rocket card glue in the sped up footage. So this seems to be the most effective glue for doing this part of the actual construction, because I think, as I've mentioned in previous videos, it dries very quickly and you get quite a clean sort of finish. And so we end up with it wrapping around the edges, so you get a nice sort of edge on the end. So you get the blue edge on the end of the door. So we'll let that dry as well before we apply the inside texture, which is just stuck over the top, and of course that will cover up these blue tabs that have been wrapped around the edge. So if we head back to this wall here, which needs its window and windowsill, so these are the windowsills that I'd made up earlier, and what I usually find, just to sort of get it to ease into these notches a little bit better, as I just actually wedge just a bit of scrap 2mm card through there first before I actually poke these in, because I don't really want the edges or the corners here. So you've got this sort of notch in here, and the windowsill's got to fit into that notch. So the key really is not to scuff up the print that's on the upper surface. So that just slides in there, and it's a very nice snug fit when it's notched in there. And you'll see that I haven't actually used any glue, because what I'm actually going to do is I spread the glue around the outer edge on the inside here, and then of course this window frame is going to sit on top, and that's just basically going to glue the whole lot into place. So using the same rocket card glue, we're just going to run around these edges. So we'll go back to this last final door and spread some glue around for this. Right, so that's the last door completed, and I can set them aside. Now this is where I can actually put this one together. So you've got your outer wall, and then there is this inner wall. So that is actually glued in on the back of this wall, and with the door lining up between each layer. And then, for example, a wall surface is then butted up against the inside edge like so. And I think this is going to create quite a sturdy construction. So I'll glue these together, and I think I might just use some PVA glue, and then we'll just clamp it so it's going to set rigid. So we've now attached all the interior walls to the back of the exterior walls, so we're actually starting to get quite a solid effect here. So these are all attached into place and creates quite a tidy interior as well. So, and that's the other front wall. So what I'm looking at now is the door rails, and I've worked up one just to see how it goes. So the clear plastic tab at the top slots in underneath the groove in there, and we should be able to slide the door along. So when this is actually mounted onto its base, the paving slabs at the bottom will have a notch in it, and that will provide the guide for the bottom of the door. So I worked out a method of applying these tiny little strips of black card to get it in the right position for the door. So I just looked at the door position and worked out that there's a line of bricks that run across the top here, which is where the plastic tab actually reaches. So using a bit of this Tamiya masking tape, which of course is quite low tack, so it's not going to affect the paper brickwork, is placing this tape across where that position is on the wall, and this will act as a guide for attaching the first component of this rail system. So that's secured into place, and hopefully what it should be able to do is tuck this plastic component underneath the door, and we have our positionable sliding door. So that's how that works. So I'll put together the last door rail for this building, and then we'll actually begin having a look at assembling the main wall components. So we'll begin assembling both of the building components, and we'll start with the smaller one first. Now you will notice here that there is one that doesn't have a brick texture on it. Now this is the wall that's actually going to be facing the larger building component, so it wasn't necessary for it to be covered in brick. So it's got the interior brick but nothing on the outside. So I'm going to use rocket card glue once again, and I'm actually just going to use the grid of the cutting mat to get the wall components square as I attach them. So there we have the two main building components now assembled, and I think we'll leave it for this video, otherwise it's just going to get ridiculously too long. So I think the build for this coal merchant and boiler repair shop is actually coming together reasonably well. I mean, there's still quite a lot to actually complete on the model, and the plan is to hopefully look at this after Christmas and finish it off before the new year comes in. So of course there'll be one final video coming up before the end of 2022. So some of the aspects obviously to complete is it needs a roof. We've of course got capping stones that need to be applied around the top of the walls, and then I'm actually going to go a little bit further with the interior detail. Now I may not be able to complete this before the end of the year because I've ordered some components, various little 3D printed items that are going to go on the inside of the workshops. So one of the other components that I really want to add, which I've been trying to find an excuse to actually add one of these items, and that is an arc welding light effect. So that's going to be installed into one of the buildings as well, which kind of connects in with maybe the boiler repairs side of the business. So of course there'll also be some internal lighting to add, and also actually some external lighting as well. So it would make sense that there would be some lamps on the outside above the entrances. And of course, one final touch will be to add some signage as well to the street frontage, which will of course relate to the coal merchant and also the boiler repair workshop as well. So there we have it. It's certainly been quite a lengthy video, this one, but I really do actually want to be able to sort of complete this end of the street before the end of this year, because then I can actually crack into some scenery application the beginning of 2023. So also a reminder too, we have the Christmas competition coming to a close on Tuesday night. So if you haven't already entered into the competition, there's a link in the description below which will send you to the competition page on the website, and there's a link in the top corner there which will take you to the competition video which I put out about 2 weeks ago. So I'll be drawing the winners of this competition on Wednesday, and then obviously getting in touch with the winners for their respective prizes. So I'll sign off for now and catch you again on Wednesday. So do take care, everyone. Look after yourselves. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now.